Welcome everyone. As many of you know, my name is Preeti Takle and I'm an educationist, an environmentalist, and a small bit of the DNA at Sanctuary Nature Foundation. I'm very, very delighted to welcome you all to the Sikh Sanctuary talk with Prerna Singh Bindra, who has been at the forefront of the battle to conserve India's wildlife for about 15 years. She was a member of India's National Board for Wildlife and its core standing committee between 2010 and 2013. Her work has contributed to the creation of new protected areas. She's a widely published journalist and has authored the critically acclaimed book, The Vanishing, India's Wildlife Crisis. It was published in 2017. She has also co-edited Wild Treasures, Reflections on Natural World Heritage Sites in Asia, published by the Wildlife Institute of India in 2019. Prerna, big welcome to you. Thank you for joining us here today. I know you have not been keeping well, but thank you for doing this for us.
So Sanctuary always, so a great pleasure to be, thanks so much Preeti, and always a pleasure to do anything and everything for Sanctuary.
Oh, that's really nice. Please. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's begin by you telling us something about yourself and how this whole journey began for you.
I just loved animals, and it's my work in conservation is an affair of the heart. As a child, I was always used to look after the sick and ailing birds which fell from trees. I used to feed peacocks which were outside. Eventually convinced everyone that we need a dog at home, and realized that dogs have feelings, etc. They're not just animals. I realized animals think, and the injustice of the way we treated them or thought this world was ours or we are superior beings. I imbibed compassion from my mother. I read a lot of books, Gerald Durrell, James Herriot, M. Krishnan's Statesman column, Sanctuary, and I think so. It was a mishmash of everything. But for me, my life, it's always been. I remember if there was a snake which came out in our house, we used to live in a rambling bungalow. While everybody would be worried about usko maro, usko bhagao, I would be saying, please leave the snake alone. I would, so it was always, so I think, that. And then I went the usual route, did a personal management degree. Thought I, joined IIM Ahmedabad, but that wasn't me. I used to see the trees, the woods that were behind, they were cut down. The sanctuary that I used to go to, there was a mine that happened there, and there was a complete silence surrounding all this destruction that used to take place, trees. And I thought, why is nobody talking about it? This is so important. And then Sanctuary happened in my life, and that's another story. And so began my wild journey.
Great. So you progressed from being the neighborhood animal doctor, if I'm right, to a wildlife journalist, and then onto a conservationist. So it has been a long journey for you, right? And I mean, you were also part of building Sanctuary, if I'm not wrong. I'm told that you were responsible, or you were a part of building up Sanctuary.
Somebody's being very kind.
No. So what can you say, like you were a lady in a very male dominated field. So do you have any particular, things that you had to overcome to establish yourself in this field?
Yeah, so, actually Sanctuary I joined in 1997 or some such. So, yeah, I'm old.
You're not older than me.
It was my, 20 minutes is too short to tell that story, but, that was my first job which gave me exposure to, and it was completely going from a management field to wildlife, and gave me exposure to people in wildlife and breeding sanctuary, meeting with people. But when after a point I thought, sanctuary is, it's wonderful, but we need to reach the common person, so through normal, the news media. And it was difficult as a woman, which you mentioned, because not just as a woman, reporting on environment for regular news media was not on. So I actually used to cover films. I've interviewed Shah Rukh Khan, and all the Khans, and and gone for Maurats and all those things, because no one would give you a job as an environment reporter. But I said, look, I'll do environment on my time. So it was difficult to have that need to write on environment. At that time, it wasn't, there was no time investment, money investment. You just did everything on your own initiative. And as a woman, definitely I faced harassment. In fact, I was one of the people who complained in this whole Me Too movement against an editor. I've faced it in, when you go and meet bureaucrats, officials, etc., and dealt with it. When you're alone out in the field, well, you do face it. Things are far better now, but even coming from a conservative Punjabi family, trying to tell them you're going to go into the forest, nobody would understand. What the hell are you up to? Well, shadi karao, teacher bano. What are you doing going tramping around forests? So it wasn't, that bit also was very difficult to overcome. That is, of course, my mother was incredibly proud of me. My brothers, they are all incredibly proud of me now. But it's been a tough one. Yes. To charter the unconventional path.
That's fantastic. That's a fantastic story, Prerna, so far. And of course, your big book, The Vanishing, that has been so widely acclaimed by everyone. And I read somewhere that you equate the vanishing of India's wildlife to a Holocaust. Yes. So can you explain that a little bit to us?
Isn't it? I mean, when you see India's wildlife, actually India has so much to be proud of. As you and I know, we have, with our huge population and grinding poverty on one end and this economic race on the other end, managed to retain such predators and creatures, mega herbivores like elephants, while other countries have wiped out theirs, countries that we love to emulate like US or whatever be, Europe, they're largely wiped out there. So I think we have our reverence, our cultural connect to wildlife, our strong environment laws have stood us in great stead, and I'm very proud of our people. Having said that, we are now on the path to, we are diluting environment laws, the legal framework which helps protect wildlife. We are decimating wildlife habitats, even protected areas, which are just 5% of India. As compared to even, in our neighborhood, Nepal has about 15, Pakistan has about 9, world average is about 10. We have just 5%, and within them we have highways, we have towns, we have canals, we have, we have human habitation. We have in every, we have railways, and when you see 7 elephants crushed by a speeding train, and you see animals being beaten up, animals electrocuted, wildlife poached at unprecedented scales. Yeah, and the fact that it is a age of 6th extinction. And we are doing this at a cost like apne pair pe kulhadi maar rahe hain. We are cutting the branch we are sitting on. We are in a pandemic today. You started by saying we are locked down. Why? Because we are exploiting wildlife. We are butchering for wildlife. We are cutting down and destroying forests, putting them in proximity to us, wildlife in unnatural proximity to us. And that is what is causing zoonotic diseases. We are in a climate crisis. We are, we can't breathe. Our children have impaired lungs, and we say environment is a luxury. That it's a hurdle to development. I think some things we have lost the battle, and therefore I call it a holocaust.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. But, well, how many people think like that? That is the whole. It's very difficult when you think of environment and wildlife being in a crisis and equated to a holocaust, which probably people think about in terms of more anthropological, uh, terms. So,
But we are also animals. That's something we forget. And
absolutely.
ultimately,
And
we
a
are
part of
part of the
the whole
whole.
picture. Yes. So, uh, India has been at the forefront of saving tigers all these years, and most of the Royal Bengal tigers that
वो
exist in the
15 हो
wild
गए.
today are living in India in the forest. And do you think that we have kind of oversold the story of this tiger being safe? Is it really safe?
Um, so it's International Tiger Day on 29th,
Yes.
and we shall celebrate. And as we must, because a tiger is beautifully alive and gorgeous. But is it safe? No. We can be very proud of the fact that we have 70% of the world's tigers, as I just mentioned, because of the various reasons. And I must put in a word for the soldiers on the front line of forest staff who really sacrifice their all and, are unsung heroes. So we have a lot to be proud of. But what I worry is, again, what I told you is that if अगर टाइगर का जंगल नहीं रहेगा, if it doesn't have its habitat, it doesn't have a future. And right now the laws, we have a National Board for Wildlife which is toothless. We have laws like the EIA Draft Notification 2021, Wildlife Rules and Regulations, Forest Conservation Act, the Forest Advisory Committee, all have been diluted and weakened. Clearances are being given for the most damaging of projects within tiger habitats. And even tiger reserves. For heaven's sake, the Ken Betwa river link is going to drown the heart of Panna. And we don't even know, but Palamu, poor thing, nobody talks about a Palamu, but Kutku Dam will drown the core of Palamu. Datapani Tiger Reserve, beautiful, it's still not a tiger reserve, beautiful area, expanding highways, expanding railways, and I can go on and on. We're allowing of the kind of stuff that we're allowing within tiger reserves, within tiger habitats, within national parks. These are sacrosanct. How can we even think of a highway through Corbett? That was where Project Tiger was born.
True.
So if we are doing this, I worry for the tiger. If 2% of India, the tiger's footprint is currently in 2% of India, it must remain sacrosanct.
So then, for this, yeah.
And just that, the poaching thing, I think we have to understand the gravity of the crime and not treat it like ek janwar mara. We have to understand and treat it as we treat a narcotics issue, because it's all interlinked on arms. Right.
So, on the one hand, we have expanding tiger populations in the best protected areas, okay? And then we say that the tiger is not safe, we are losing habitat and stuff like that. So what is the solution to this? Because it is obviously going to lead to overcrowding. It is leading to overcrowding in the forests. So do you think translocation is an answer, or corridors is an answer? Or, I mean, how do you manage this?
So we have, there are a few tiger reserves which have this which have, an optimal density of tigers. And once upon a time, they were able to traverse and reach other forests which are not so well endowed. Unfortunately, for a tiger today, he must cross human towns. He or she must learn to swim in canals, must learn to negotiate highways and dodge trains and crowds. So it's a tough life being a tiger. So I think protected areas, sacrosanct, in terms of no more giving away for development, quote unquote, and other activities. Voluntary relocation is very controversial, but I do believe when it is voluntary, fair, just, informed, and when people do want to go out, and I've been to endless tiger reserves where people are desperate to go out because situation inside, it's not easy having a tiger or an elephant as a neighbor, living with them day to day, when you lose your crop, your livelihood, etc. So voluntary relocation is another answer. We have to give tigers safe passage. We have to protect. We know the key corridors, and any development in them must be tiger permeable. It must allow for safe passage for tigers, and areas which have good habitat but low population of tigers, like in Odisha, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, excellent forests, but being mined to death. So these forests must be conserved, and there is a great potential for tigers to bounce back there. And we must focus on these areas. And that, I think, is what we need to do.
That's what we need to do. Great.
And also work with the local communities so that they benefit for I think they are very, very critical in this whole they benefit.
They're the ones who are right there in contact with the forest and the animals. Yeah, it's okay for us to just land up there for a trip.
Yeah, for clicking pictures. They must be partners in conservation.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Not just beneficiaries, but partners and beneficiaries.
Another question that comes to my mind is, do you think young people will be able to manage what conservationists, will be able to manage the future better than what we have done? Would they be visionaries?
I know Bittu Sehgal places a lot of hope in the young people. And I sincerely hope that he's proved right, and that's the case. We have really screwed up things, that I must say. We need political will. And for young people, we need them to get out there, and not just see tigers, but the nature around them, to be sensitive, to be curious, to have that sense of wonder, to have that knowledge, because the world is theirs. They surely don't want to inherit a world which is shorn of all the beauty, and so I don't, at times, when I see, and don't want to say only Greta Thunberg, but all the the wonderful people in India and other parts of the world, Africa, everywhere, who are now making their voices heard. We need to cherish them, not suppress them the way it has been happening.
True.
Not mock them. Yeah. So it's their world. We have only borrowed it, correct?
Absolutely. So we can expect a long pitched battle for places like Dibang in Arunachal Pradesh and, Ari in Mumbai. Kids are going to have to fight these battles in the future also, if we don't have the visionaries who can make changes for us.
Yeah. See, it's environment is everyone's cause. It's not the forest officer's cause, or it's not the environmentalist or the greenies as they are called, or tree huggers or whatever. All of us breathe clean air, need air. All of us want water. So it is everyone's cause, and the battle will happen. There's this beautiful song which a 22-year-old rapper sent to me on Dehing Patkai.
Okay.
Oh, and so much passion, the Dehing Patkai, which is being mined to hell and back. Then yesterday I got this lovely video of 2 young kids fighting to save Mollem National Park in Goa. So such things, like at the end of the day, when you receive something like that, you think, yes, they will battle on and we will win the battle. Because it's not about Mollem, it's not about Dibang, it's not about Are. I always say it's not about us saving the tiger, it's about the tiger saving us. We need it. We need the tiger because we need forests, we need the air that it gives us, we need it to protect us from the climate crisis. We need it, and forget all of that, we need its beauty and power and
Yes, that's true. I'm going to roll 2 questions into one because we are running out of time. One is, you are a role model for young girls. Okay, so what advice can you give them if they want to follow in your footsteps? That's one. And the second question is, there are a lot of teachers out here today who are listening to you. So what could the teachers do now, especially in this lockdown period, to keep the connect with nature for the students going? Because there's no going out, there's nothing that they can really do except online stuff. But how are they going to connect to nature? Is there some suggestion that you could share with them?
So, as I was saying, have faith in yourself. As a young girl, I mean, as I told you, I had a lot of even parental expectations and pressures. So, confidence and faith in yourself, fire, keep the fire burning, deep commitment. It can be a very heartbreaking field because, if you win a battle, you lose 20 others. Good, but it's all worth it, and all you need is, so I think that's that commitment. Empower yourself, believe in yourself, don't give up, take everyone along, is all I would say, and have fun while you do it. And going to the forest, I mean, it will make everything worth it. Just not even going to the forest, see a bird fly.
Absolutely, yes.
And to the teachers out there, and I hope I meet many other women conservationists, and more of us, not just women actually. Any conservationist is a delight to meet. And to the teachers out there, you have so much power, to ignite young minds. It's what they imbibe from teachers is something. And so just it's a difficult time doing everything online. I don't know what advice I can give to teachers. It should be the other way around. But I wasn't really, so just by my example, I wasn't really encouraged to go out and do things or whatever. It was reading which made me curious. I actually wrote a letter to Jane Goodall, Africa, in a postcard and sent it to her, asking her something. It's another story. But so encourage them to read perhaps a reading list, tell them to look at the birds outside, or keep water for birds outside, then watch them, record them, take photographs. So many things that they can do just within the daira of their home. And with various activities, I mean, Kids for Tigers is such a huge resource. I can send you a video that I took yesterday of birds outside, and it just 2 days back, which is so beautiful, just by keeping water and stuff outside. So I think giving them various such things to do, and even not just birds but bees and wasps and dragonflies. Tell them dragonflies fly from Africa to India. Isn't that mind-blowing?
Wow.
So just things like that which can make them go, like you said, wow. I don't think I've answered that question, but I mean, teachers are actually better equipped. They're anyway really challenged trying to keep children's mind, get their attention while trying to teach them online. So they will. So hats off to them.
Well, Prerna, I have to thank you so much for being here today and sharing your thoughts with us. A big thank you from all the teachers who've joined in today, as well as from Sanctuary Nature Foundation and Mr. Bittu Sehgal himself. Thank you so much.